everyone, I am Vibha Chauhan and welcome to Chauhan classes for the clear. So today I will explain the third chapter for class 10th political science, and that chapter is going to be democracy and diversity. So democracy and diversity. Now in this chapter, as in the last chapter, we have seen that how there have been levels of government or the division of power in the government to accommodate with linguistic and regional differences. But you know what, that these are not the only fields in which, on the basis of which people think that there has been social divisions or social differences. You know what, on the basis of religion, on the basis of caste, tribal communities, or even the physical appearance, and in many things people think that on the basis of them people think that they are different. There can be social divisions, social inequalities, all the social differences. So you can just say that there has been a lot of diversity in the world as well as in India. So basically in this chapter we are going to discuss about how democracy affects them, how democracy affects the diversity, and how democracy itself is affected by that diversity. So all this we are going to discuss in this chapter by looking up at first example. Now let's start a chapter with our first topic, that is a story from Mexico Olympics. So a story from Mexico Olympics. Now in 1968, Olympics were held in Mexico. Mexico, that is a country in the Northern America. In Northern America continent, it is just below the United States of America. So you know what, that in Mexico in 1968, Olympics were held. And in men's 200-meter race, what happened that there were 3 athletes who had won the first, second and third place in that race. Now first and third place takers were African Americans. Now African Americans are those people whose ancestors were from Africa and now they have been born and have been living for their whole lives in America. Their ancestors were from Africa and had gone there in America as a plantation worker. So you can just say that those are known as, in common language, as African American, and commonly they are also known as the black people in America. Now you know what, that first and second athlete, first was Tommy Smith and the third was the John Carlos. Now John Carlos and Tommy Smith, what they did was that when they had won that race and the national anthem of USA was being played in the background, what happened that they upraised their fists and unbowed their heads, showing the black power, and their shoes, they also were not wearing the shoes but were wearing the black socks that was representing the black poverty in the USA. You know what, that they were showing, they were representing in USA how there was a lot of kind of racial discrimination, and that is why they were showing the black power. Black power, that was a kind of movement that was in USA, that harassed in USA, that held in USA for many years. So you can just say down that in USA, for showing a black power or for showing the racial discrimination that was being done in the USA, in the States. So you know, you could say that. And the athlete that had taken the second place was from Australia, was a white Australian athlete whose name was Peter Norman, who also supported them. How is it so? Because he wasn't black, because he had wore a kind of social badge that was for the human rights and was supporting those African Americans for the discrimination that was being done in their country. So you can just say that the internal matter of discrimination in the United States of America was brought up to the international forum, and that is why they also had a lot of criticism. You know what, in their country their medals were taken back. From John Carlos and Smith, their medals were taken back, and for Norman Peter as well, for Peter Norman as well, his lot of opportunities for the next Olympics were also taken back. So you can just say that how they faced a lot of criticism for doing certain act. But you know what, that later, many years after, it did show a kind of, it did succeed among the mindset of the people, in the mindset of people. Now what happened that in the university in which these African Americans, Carlos and Smith, had studied, that was the San Jose University. Now in that university's campus, their statue has been made and has been installed as well. So you can just say that it has succeeded. Their act had succeeded as for such such a bravest act or such a courageous act, you could say. So you can just say that that was the example for the social division, for raising their voice against the social division or the social differences, social inequalities as well. Now you know what, at first there are social differences, then there can be social divisions, and it can be at a very high level as social discriminations as well. So you can just say that this was an example from the Mexico Olympics that were held in 1968, in which as well as the blacks and whites were supporting the black movement, the civil rights movement in the America. Now civil rights movement, that was a set of events and all those movements that were started and that were against the racial discrimination in the United States of America. So that is an example from the Mexican Olympics. Now here our next topic is differences, similarities, divisions. So differences, similarities and divisions. Now let us discuss about, that those people, there can be differences, similarities and divisions as well. That we have seen that there can be, in a country there can't be just one type of social division, or there can't be just one kind of difference among the people, as we have seen the cases of Belgium and Sri Lanka. Now in Sri Lanka we have seen that there were the differences in the linguistic differences, and as well as the regional religion differences. That their religion were also different and their languages were also different, and the same case we have seen in Germany. And the same case we have seen in Belgium. Now in Belgium we have seen that in different regions people were speaking different languages. That was the linguistic and regional differences. So there can be differences based on religion, region, or language, or in anything. So there can be similarities in one way and there can be differences in other way as well. Now they were all the citizens of the same region, but they were speaking the different languages. So you can just say that there can be divisions, differences or the similarities in any country or in any way. Now here the subtopic that we have got is origins of social differences. So origins of social differences. Now let us discuss how all that differences, social difference originated. What is the origin of all those social differences? That mostly all the differences, social differences, are based on the accident of birth. Normally we don't choose in which caste to be born, or in which religion to be born, or in which region to be born. But that it is just an accident of birth. You can just say in the common language that is because we have a lot of social division, social differences. That people around us are male or female, they are tall and short, they have different types types of complexions, and it is all just because of an accident of birth. But that all that social division or the social differences are not based on the accident of birth, because we choose what we get to be as well. That what occupation to take, we choose that, what to study, we choose that, and all where to live, to migrate from one region to another region, and to search for work. It is all that we choose. And after that, that some people are atheists. They don't belong to any religion, nor they believe in God. But there are some types of people who leave their religion to another religion. They join another religion. They are in different religion from which they were born in. So you can just say that we choose what we get to be. We get to be what we choose as well. So you can just say that it is all the starting of all that social differences, what we call social differences or the social divisions. That because of all this, because of accident of birth and because what we choose, there can be a lot of social differences. A person, two people from the same organization, from the same religion, may feel like a lot of gap, or there can be enmity among them, but it can also unite the people of a very different language, of a very different cultures, as they join the same organization. Or it can also unite the people from a very different culture or tradition. So you can just say that it is how all that originates. It is how all the startings of beginning of all that social divisions or the social differences. Now your next subtopic is overlapping and cross-cutting differences. So overlapping and cross-cutting differences. Now you know what, that conditions get worse. It got worse in America and even today get worse. That of social divisions and all those social differences, because if all that problems are overlapping with each other, all those types of social divisions or social differences are overlapping to each other with each other. For example, in America, you know what, that blacks tend to be poor, they tend to be homeless or helpless, and they tend to be just homeless or kind of people who are discriminated against, who are discriminated with. And in India too, Dalits tend to be poor, homeless, and the same condition here as well. So you can just say that different types of people, all those problems are overlapping with each other, and that's why the conditions get worse and there can be social inequalities. That social difference gets converted into social inequality, and that is what we call that overlapping with each other. And there can be cross-cutting as well. Now in cross-cutting, they are they can be accommodated easily. Let's take an example of Northern Ireland and the Netherlands. Now you know what, that both countries are predominantly dominated by the Christian community, but you know what, that they are divided on the basis of Catholics and Protestants. Now the Northern Ireland, what happened is that what is happening, what goes like that you know what, that Catholics, if you're a Catholic, then you're likely to have a very kind of terrific past, and you have been discriminated against, and you won't have so much opportunities in purchasing home or in any job employment. But you know what, that in Netherlands, in the country that is the Netherlands, what happens that they both have the same probability of being poor or rich, of being homeless, helpless, and all those things. So both Catholics and Protestants have the same probability in the Netherlands, and that is why there aren't any kind of that much conflicts in the Netherlands as compared with the Northern Ireland. Now the Northern Ireland, there have been a lot of conflicts between these two. There can be so much resentment or so much conflicts between these two groups, that is the Catholics and Protestants, and that is what we call that cross-cutting with each other. They are cross-cutting with each other, and that is how it is. You could say that if problems are cross-cutting with each other, then you can just say that it is very hard to take out that man from that pit. So you can just say that how these things go differently. There's a kind of opposite with each other. Now there can be so many communities in a small country as well as in a large country. A vast country like India has so many languages, so many cultural differences, and so many community. And even small countries like that Belgium or Sri Lanka do have a lot of communities, also a lot of social divisions. And you know what, that even countries like Germany and Sweden, who were once homogeneous country, now homogeneous in which there aren't any kind of ethnic communities. They are all people are of same community or are belonging to the same religion community. There aren't that much differentiation, but now still they have been influenced by the migration from different countries, and that is you know what, that if migrants are coming, then it is obvious that they would bring their own culture, tradition, their language, their all things. So you can just say how all the countries have been influenced, and what we can call as the origin of all those social differences as well. Now you know what, that it is not necessary to have just an accident of birth. You know what, that many people have been united because of all these things as well. Like for example, as we had seen of the Mexican Olympics. Now we had seen that those two people from America were African Americans, that were the Carlos and Smith. But what about the second place athlete? That was Peter Norman from Australia. He was an Australian, but why was he supporting? Because the common thing between them was that athletes, they all were athletes and were against the racial discrimination. So you can just say that if people are different in one context, then they can be similar in another context as well. So no one can say that he or she just has one identity. They have different identities in different contexts. It just matters how you see it, how you imagine it, how you have the vision. You just have to look at the big picture, you could say. Now next and last topic of this chapter is politics of social divisions. So politics of social divisions. Now let's connect this type of social divisions, all these social divisions or the social differences that have been converted into social divisions to the politics, to the democracy or the politics. Now at the poor visit or at the first sight, you can just say that it can be very explosive, it can be very destructive. It has led to disintegration of the countries as well. But on the other side, you can also say that, on the other hand, you can also say that it can be for a good range of outcome as well. Now let's discuss about this relation of all those social divisions to the politics. Now there can be different types of range of outcomes, that is how the outcomes had outcome, how that result had outcome. Now let's discuss about it with example. Now with the example of Yugoslavia, if we look at the example of Yugoslavia, then it did not have any kind of happy ending, because there were many ethnic communities in Yugoslavia, and that led to the disintegration of the countries into 6 independent countries. So you can just say that 6 independent countries were created from a single state of Yugoslavia because of just this type of social divisions, and they could not conclude it a very good result. And if we take the example of Northern Ireland, now in the Northern Ireland there are 2 groups of the same religion, of the same Christianity, that are the Catholics and Protestants. Now 54% and 44%. Now that is a ratio of their. So you can just say that they can be found in Northern Ireland in a very large number and in the same proportion as well. Now they are about in the same proportion, and that is why there have been a lot of conflicts in the Northern Ireland as well. Now there have been 2 groups in Northern Ireland, that is the Unionists and the Nationalists. The Nationalists who are predominantly Catholics, you know what, that they wanted the Northern Ireland to be joined with the Republic of Ireland, and all those Unionists were against it. They wanted the Northern Ireland to be part of the UK, of the Great Britain, and that is why for all those movements that took place during those years, many civilians, many forces, many soldiers, and many nationalists and the Unionists were killed. You know what, that there were many fights and movements in the Northern Ireland. Many fights, you know what, that between the nationalists and Unionists, and between the nationalists and the UK forces as well. And finally in 1998, nationalists and the UK forces reached to a conclusion that resulted in a peace treaty between them, and they had left their armed struggle, or the forces left their armed struggle. So you can just say that is how that took place in Northern Ireland, and there can be different range of outcomes, because not in all the cases there has been seen a kind of disintegration in the country. Even today we see that in many countries there are social division, but still it is represented by the politics, because all those political parties raise those issues and promise to give advantages for all those disadvantaged, marginalized societies, marginalized communities, those people who have been discriminated with. So you can just say that in a democracy, even today we see that in politics it has been brought up, all those social divisions are being brought up, and you know what, that there are different parties, different political parties in a democracy, and that is why for competition, for coming into the government, they promise all those marginalized communities and all those people who have been discriminated with, they give promise to them, they give benefits to them to come into the power. So you can just say that in a way or in other way, they are just helping those poor people. So you can just say that is how the relations all between the social divisions and politics conclude. Now there can be 3 determinants for this. Now first is that how people see themselves, see their identity, how people perceive themselves. Like for example in Belgium, we saw that all the people saw themselves as Belgian as much as they were all those German speaking or French speaking or the Dutch speaking, but they saw as the first priority party that they were the Belgian people, and that is why they were living together. They are in unity, and that is what we have to see. All the citizens should not see just a mere their caste or religion, but they should look at the big picture of all those movements, all those discrimination, and all those things. So they have to see all those big picture of all that social divisions. As we have seen in the case of Sri Lanka, it could not be seen, and that is why there have been many conflicts in Sri Lanka. And in the contrast case in Belgium, we have seen that they are still living in a very kind unity. So that is how people must perceive their identity. They should not think that's in a one way, they should think in another ways as well. Now next is that next determinant of all this relation between the social divisions and politics can be that how political parties raise the issues of all those social division. You know what, it is also very important that all those political parties raise all those type of issues of all those social divisions, as it can come among the people, it will change the mindset of people, and as well as they will have their popularity or whatever they want. So you can just say that it also matters the most how all those political parties raise the issues, and if they have the constitutional framework. You know what, that if they are raising that issue in the House of Parliament, in the Parliament, then obviously it would have a kind of constitutional framework, and that would help benefit the people as well. You know what, that they should bring up all the matters and should bring the concerns for the other communities as well, as we have seen an example of Sri Lanka. Now in Sri Lanka we have seen that they were just imposing the Sinhala language, not concerning about the Tamil language speaking people and all those other people about the Tamil community, and that is why it could not be taken in Sri Lanka, and that is why it led to a civil rights movement. So you can just say that all the political parties must bring all those issues in the parliament or in any institution of government to bring that issue and for benefiting all those people as well. Now third and the most important determinant of all those things, of all the social divisions, can be the decision of the government, how government is making decisions, is making reforms for all those matters. Now you know what, that government has the responsibility for all those social division matters in a country, and that is why we need a very good government, and that is what we do through elections. So you can just say that through government we have their laws, we have the constitutional framework, because all those issues are arisen by all those political parties, but the real work, but the real responsibility is of all that government as well, and that is we need in the country, in a democracy. So you can just say that these are the three determinants for the social division in politics. And we can also say that all that politics in the social division doesn't just mean the disintegration of the country, because in India as well we have a lot of social divisions and we have a kind of social inequalities as well, a little bit. So you can just say that government is doing work in that, and it has been arisen, it has been issued in the politics as well, but it hasn't led to that much kind of conflicts in our country. Only it was the bloody partition of 1947, but after that we have controlled the situations of our country so much, and we have seen a lot of examples in the world as well. So you can just say that how this all has been attributed towards the politics, towards the social divisions. You know what, that if social division, if the matters of social divisions have been issued, have been raised in the politics, then what would happen, that all those marginalized communities would be benefited. But you know what, that it doesn't take place that easily. There have been many struggles that have been gone through by all those marginalized communities against all those injustice, for justice in their country. You know what, that at some level it would be, in most of the cases it would be very in the constitutionally valid struggle, or it could be a kind of non-violative struggle against all those injustice. But if all that civil divisions goes to social inequalities in a very unacceptable method, then there will be violative path that we have seen in Yugoslavia as well. So you can just say that how these takes place, how these different things take place. Now what is the mindset of people, that they think that all those social divisions exist only in India, but that is not true. Even in the European countries, in Bulgaria or in Romania or in Sri Lanka, in any country, in many of the countries like in in Korea or in Japan, you can still see many of the social divisions among the people. So you can just say that all those type of social divisions don't just exist in India. So that is all we have discussed in this chapter. Now in this chapter, from starting to last, we discussed about the social divisions, social differences and social inequalities. We saw the example of Mexican Olympics, and after that all this politics and social divisions. So that is all we have discussed in this chapter. I have discussed all topics and subtopics, and the next remaining chapters of this book will be covered in upcoming videos. So thank you very much.